PC Gamer, one of the greatest websites that brought us jewels like Diablo 4, good, Path of Exile 2, bad because it's hard. Or that Dark Souls is not really that great because, yet again, it's hard. And that gamers should trust journalist opinions because you shouldn't think for yourself. What are you doing?
In 2024, we have seen so many journalists melting down over the fact that they are losing their jobs at a rapid rate, and gamers are not sitting here defending them, going, oh my
Nice.
gosh, I can't believe this is happening. Poor journalists. But now, PC Gamer has put out another hit piece saying it feels like the games industry is poised for a vibe shift or maybe a reckoning, and they talk about the evil gamer gators. I have a few.
A vibe shift? No, the vibe shift was never real. It was. Some companies try to force include Vogue and all of that garbage into this, but it's not real. A reckoning, yes, but not against gamers, against the companies that made Dragon Age Railguard, that made Starfield, that made Diablo 4, that made all of these things that were supposed to be great, but were sacrificed on the altar of Vogue.
Different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, just a few days ago, they had put out another piece talking about the state of the industry and how there are a ton of gaming controversies that happened in 2024, and they discuss Sweet Baby Inc. sparking anti-woke outrage. I did another video on it. It will be linked down below, but to read this really quickly, they talk about
Disgusting.
how in March, a little known company called Sweet Baby Inc. was suddenly thrust into the spotlight by anti-woke gamers outraged by, at one put it, the narrative consultants' ideological worldviews being shoved into video games, which is funny how they say, oh, SBI is a little known company. First of all, they are an infamous company at this point, but Sweet Baby Inc. has not been a small company. Sure, I guess you could say that if you're just discussing the amount of employees they had last time we were told how many they had, but on the flip side, they have worked with behemoths in the industry like Sony, like Microsoft. They've worked with Devolver Digital most recently. We are not talking about them being a company that has no influence, right? The media constantly tries to say this, as Alyssa Mercante had put it, Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't do what you think they do, which is a complete and utter lie. They do
Yeah, it's a complete lie. The downfall of Sweet Baby Inc. honestly is one of the biggest things that's good for gamers that has happened in a long time because that was literally a company dedicated to ruining games as we like them. It was a company that existed for no other purpose than to call us bad for what we like and adore, which is completely normal. It's nothing bad, obviously. And their downfall is a very, very significant thing. We're never gonna probably truly expunge woke from gaming because woke is a concept and you can't really get rid of a concept. There's always gonna be some lunatic out there spouting some nonsense. You can never get rid of that. But getting rid of something as monumental as Sweet Baby Inc. that literally is just nepos hiring other nepo woke people and then pouring them in other companies to make also other games that they don't even work on verse is amazing. It's a huge win for us that this happened.
exactly what you believe they do. Why would they be hired to do absolutely nothing to projects? That makes no sense. But they talk about how, which is of course nonsense, the company is contracted by developers who want to improve pre existing elements of their games. But I haven't seen much improvement given every title Sweet Baby Inc. has touched this year has turned to trash, and 95% of the games they've worked on have not been successful.
Yep.
But they talk about how the outcome is as ridiculous as it sounds. The Fuhrer was real. A Steam curator group dedicated to detecting the presence of SBI in games has now swollen to more than 460,000 followers, which just proves that there really are millions and millions of gamers who disagree with what SBI is doing in the industry, because you know that there are tons of people who are paying
Obviously.
attention but decided to just not follow this list. But now they're putting out yet another piece titled After 2024. It feels like the games industry is poised for a vibe shift or maybe a reckoning. This year's trends and hardships are setting up 2025 to be a year of big change. The change that we really need in the gaming industry is companies listening to consumers, because at every single level, things can only go up. I mean, let's be honest, the gaming industry is still making a massive amount of money. $208 billion in 2024, it's estimated, which is crazy, but they could be making even more money if they were listening to what we really wanted. Look at what happened with Ubisoft.
True. True. People are saying that AAA companies nowadays can no longer exist because they just don't. They're just bad at their jobs. They have all the tools to make good games. They know how to make good games, even if it's not the old people in charge who once made the good games that the AAA companies were known for. It doesn't matter. They have all the tools. They just choose to not make good games because, oh, you can't be hateful against this. Oh, you can't misrepresent this. Oh, that's some kind of bad stereotype thing. Oh, what do you mean 50% of your game is not crippled, disabled, gay, black people? Yeah, yeah. Because they choose to put these things into the games. They choose to put a substantial amount of effort in making them like. If they just stopped, Bethesda would be on fire. They would be pumping out amazing stuff, and I would be singing their praise. But instead of that, they're activists.
Ubisoft this year, okay? They had Skull and Bones, which was a quadruple A failure. They spent 400 to 600 million dollars on it, and it didn't even make close to that. X Defiant was supposed to be the COD killer they'd sunk years into, and that ended up flopping. You have Star Wars Outlaws. They put the most amount of money ever into marketing the game, and it couldn't even top 2 million players in totality, as far as we know. And then they
As far as I know, Star Wars Outlaws is still struggling at the 1.5 million sales. Ubisoft easily has lost on paper and in reality more than 1.2 billion this year alone, with all of their closings, with all of their things being just shut down without making their money back. They easily have lost more than 1.2 billion this year technically alone.
They had to delay Assassin's Creed Shadows because they didn't want another failure on 2024, but they have lost 85% of their market cap over only 4 years. That is mind-boggling. And 2024 was the worst year they've ever had. Billions and billions of dollars lost. And if they had listened to gamers and they were creating high quality pieces of content, they could have made billions and billions more. I mean, look at all the flops this year with Kill the Justice League, $200 million lost. These companies could have brought in another $30 billion if they actually started listening to us. But they talk about how the rough conclusion of the year has to do with roughly 15,000 game developers being laid off. There are far too few open roles for the industry to retain that talent, which, by the way, there are nearly 2 million game developers across the world. So I don't know why they're sitting here getting so upset over 15,000 developers being laid off. Yes, I do understand it sounds like a big number, but not in the grand scheme of things. Then
Yes, exactly. Not in the grand scheme of things, and also I want more. More! All of these people who are getting fired are not your developers that are like, yeah, I want to make a great game. No, 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 no. These people who are getting fired currently are, yes, we're making games, but is there enough diversity and DEI in there? And those are the people getting fired. No good developer is getting actually fired in this. Now, I'm sure there's like a handful of people who actually don't deserve to be fired in this, but most of them are activists. Most of them are people who have and should never have done anything involving gaming. This number needs an extra zero next to it, because then we will actually be truly chipping away at the problems. And these people getting fired is not the problem, it's the solution.
And they go on to talk about how, quote, right wing reactionaries fueled a renewed hate campaign against wokeness and
Hey, that's
DEI in
me!
gaming, with
And
consultancy
mommy.
Sweet Baby Inc. taking the brunt of the fire. I think that this wording is very hilarious because they talk about how we renewed a hate campaign against wokeness and DEI in gaming and we're only awful right wing reactionaries, when I could sit here and say, radical leftists fueled a renewed hate campaign against gamers and every beloved character in franchises. What did they do to Joel? They bashed his head in so they could make way for a female to replace him. So
To be fair, I don't think Hulk's pronouns are she, her.
that they could have two females as the center point of the story. What did they do with Kill the Justice League? They took one of the most beloved characters ever created and killed him. Who killed him? A raging feminist, Harley Quinn, who
Yeah, she's talking about the Batman, by the way. He gets killed in that game. Which, by the way, I love Mommy Veradark. Everyone knows it. It's literally written on my face, boys. But I don't I cannot I cannot follow the line of kill the Justice League was bad because they killed Batman, Superman, and all of those things. You're literally playing as the villains, and some people for some reason thought that Kill the Justice League is gonna be about saving the Batman and Superman and all the heroes and then being able to play as them. Which is kind of wild if you think about it. Now, I kind of understand why people actually thought that, because you don't really have anti-hero games at this point any longer. But, I mean, I kind of assume that, yeah, it's gonna be kill the Justice League, and the Justice League of an alternative dimension is gonna get killed. Yeah. Yeah, some people did not like it. I personally think it was actually nice that they did it, that they did not, cave into the idea, oh, now we need to play as Batman and Superman and whatnot, because that would be boring.
was sick and tired of her ex boyfriend's bullshit and just wanted to destroy the person who she felt wronged her over the years. What did they do? Oh, Mr. Freeze? No. Mrs.
Mrs.
Freeze, a
Freeze.
gender swapped lesbian character.
Damn.
Did we ever ask for that? No. Instead of giving us a cool Joker, they gave us the soy boy Joker. What happened with the Saints
I call it the Twink Joker.
Row reboot? Oh, that's right. They didn't bring back any of the fan favorite characters and replace them with
But
Seattle homeless hippies who drink soy lattes at Starbucks every day.
There is no way anyone has any different association to the Saints Row game and doesn't call it soy.
This is why we are sitting here questioning the decisions being made in the industry. And if you look at that lineup of games, a bunch of them have Sweet Baby Inc. or a similar narrative consultancy group at the helm. These radical leftists have a hate campaign against gamers, just like at the beginning of Gamergate 1, the same thing Anita Sarkeesian and Brianna Wu and Zoe Quinn did, where they
Oh, God.
said it was a hate campaign when really it was gamers calling out bullshit happening in the industry. We were calling out activists going, how can we make a quick buck? And then setting their sights on the video game industry because they knew that they could inject their political bullshit into this sphere. They don't give a fuck about video games. Most of the people in the industry right now don't care about the industry. This is why we have to sit here and call them out all the time. This is why I've made a billion videos about Sweet Baby Inc. and narrative consultancy companies, because these people are not listening to us. Not every game has to be for everybody, but when you have an established franchise like the Arkhamverse, for example, you shouldn't be completely disregarding the fan base you already have. All you are doing is making it so nobody trusts you in the future. It's why we sit here and say Naughty Dog's a shell of the company they once were.
Everything's a shell of the company that they once were. Blizzard, Bethesda, Ubisoft, BioWare, everything. Everything without exception. Bungie. Well, Bungie was never good in my opinion to begin with. But yeah, it's 100% true. And full-blown insanity. It's just full-blown insanity how these things happen. And they are continuing to happen. If people don't call out the things that they don't like, that they see that are wrong in the world, you're never gonna achieve change, and these things are gonna continue to happening because every time you choose to see something in the world that's not right, and you choose to not talk about it, to not point it out, to not say that's bad, that's not how it should be, you are allowing them to win. Because they chose to do it, they put it on display, and now you're choosing to not say anything about it. Always say something about it.
Rocksteady is a shell of the company they once were because they've proven us right that they are a shell. They go on to talk about how any remaining goodwill around Microsoft's acquisition spree, curdled with the blundering closure of Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks, which, by the way, Tango, by the point that they had published this article, had already announced that they were basically like reviving themselves, which is great, and I love to see that.
Another company bought Tango Games after Microsoft let them go.
They talk about how Balatro spawned copycats near instantly, reinforcing how quickly and eagerly developers hungry for a hit in a crowded Steam marketplace will pounce on a proven idea. Yeah,
Yes.
is that a
Yeah.
problem? Because I don't think it's a problem. I think that it's great developers
It's slightly annoying, but no, it's not a problem, obviously. She's completely right.
see success and they want to make a product that could also be successful. People had a lot of fun with Balatro, so I would not sit here and complain that developers are just trying to make a game that is fun like Balatro. They're going to gain an audience that way. Sure, if it was just a copy and paste the same exact game except for slightly different names on things, then I'd 100% sit here and criticize them, but that's really not the case. They talk about
There are situations when this happens, by the way. One of the biggest examples of people actually following a trend was Vampire Survivors, when that became popular. $2 game, instantaneously. The moment it became popular, the week effectively, there were already games that were just cash grabs for it. And you know what happened with those cash grabs? Most of them did not succeed. But you know what happened? People started doing it, and now we have actually a couple of great games that are inspired by Vampire Survivors. One of my favorite one is Soulstone Survivors. Yeah, it's even called Survivors at the end. But yeah, Soulstone Survivors started effectively almost as a pure ripoff of Vampire Survivors, and now I don't, well, now Vampire Survivors has more content with the Castlevania expansion. But before the Castlevania expansion, it was Soulstone Survivors that had more content. And again, started off as a ripoff game. Now it's completely unique and no one even compares them. That's how these things work. Success.
about how Concord's flopped to the tune of 200 million. I don't understand how they could be so wrong so many times over. It was not a 200
Wait, Concord was 400 million, yeah.
$100 million flop. I can't even finish this sentence without correcting them. They wasted like $500 million on this game. They
She's right. Uh, I was gonna wait until what she says, because initially Concord was 200. Then after not even a week passed when we heard of 200, people were when we got news. Oh no, it's 400. And now currently it's some sources say that it's up to 600 million. Yeah. Yeah. Now some sorts, and there are multiple games that this has happened to. Concord, I think, is one of the greatest examples. Skull and Bones is, by the way, also an example, because it started also off at 200, then it was quickly moved up to 400 million, and now it's 400 million plus 500 or 600 or something like that. I don't really remember what was the last one, but yeah, every year we get news that these disasters are actually more expensive than previously anticipated.
They had the initial publishing deals, then they went on to buy Firewalk Studios, and then they had them change a bunch of things and redevelop a bunch of areas, and they had a whole entire PvE mode that was scrapped. That's not $200 million. Buying Firewalk was probably like 150 to $200 million. We are not talking about just 200 mil here. They talk about how it was prompted by Sony to close not just the game, but the studio, bringing discourse around the risks of AAA development to a fever pitch. Yeah, when you spend $500 million on a game and you're charging $40 for it, and it's a meaty ochre title. You've only got a couple of maps, you've only got a couple of characters, there's no PvE mode, and you're doing what games did a decade ago. Never mind the fact that it is infested with DEI, you're going to fail.
That's right. At the end of the day, DEI just makes things worse. Wokeness makes things worse, and people don't like it. And people are not stupid enough to like it. And as long as these things continue to do these things that no one likes, they're not going to be successful. And that's not going to change because most people are not insane, and they're not going to be insane. That was a very dark, obviously. 10 out of 10. Bye.